Dreams without goals are just dreams. And hello to the amazing champion community. I'm so excited to welcome you to this episode of Being Champions. We have Aditya Arora with us, someone really special because this single guy started as an entrepreneur at the age of 15, and right now he runs his own venture capital firm called Faad. You can check out him on Instagram with the amazing work he's doing to help young people understand startup, funding and all that stuff. He's a pure amazing inspiration for all the young people out there who want to do something with entrepreneurship or in general something amazing with his life. We will have a conversation about entrepreneurship. We'll have a conversation everything for students if you want to become an entrepreneur in the future. We're going to cover a lot of that in today's episode, and I hope you have a great time around it. So yeah, let's go for it. So the far guy in the house, welcome Aditya. How are you doing today?
Yeah, thanks, Weber, for having me. I'm doing fantastically awesome.
Oh yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. So you've already known about the story of Aditya, how a young person doing such an incredible thing, and I've so much for us to discuss, and I'm sure there's so much for you to learn with this as well. But just before we go, jump into the questions, understanding startups, and bring it into a context of students for everybody watching this right here. Let us I want to know a little bit of the backstory because you started as an entrepreneur when you were just 15, and then you joined the Fad company. Now you lead it as an organization, funding amazing startups and stuff like that. But where does that come from? I want to go even before you started at the age of 15 to what provoked you to get started with your first venture. What was it about? And how do you think? Okay, let's get started with the story first.
Yeah. So I think when I was growing up, I was in school. Um, Entrepreneurship I was always that kid who wanted to do something what the rest of the class wasn't doing. And entrepreneurship was that something for me. But the rest of the class, I saw that all of them were talking about okay, what they'll go ahead and do after school, they'll go to business college. And I realized that nobody is talking about startups, nobody's talking about. So I realized that if you have to do something different, you have to do something different, right? So I picked up entrepreneurship for that. My very first venture was practically eating lunch boxes of my schoolmates and then sending those schoolmates to the canteen owner where I was getting a commission on sales. So, so that was my first venture. So I think the initial success, I would say, or the initial validation that I got made me more interested in this field that it's something where you can add value, it's something where you can explore yourself beyond your true potential. So I picked up entrepreneurship for that, and yeah, I think when I was working in another venture when I was 15 years old, ended up selling that venture as well. Then came to college to study business, but realized that it's a business college, but none of the people here are actually doing a startup. So why not? Why this disparity? So I ended up in, of course, working with a very early stage startup, which of course now is doing amazingly well as well. And I've been, of course, grown with that startup too. I think it's a journey where I did not plan things to happen in a certain way. Things kept on happening. Luck was favoring as well. Played a major role. But more than that, the vision to do something different and to explore yourself beyond your true potential or beyond what your um, basic personality is. I think that's what made me an entrepreneur.
Yes, indeed. Okay, so Aditya, that does make sense that you made a journey from student to all that stuff. In fact, you have a story where you were teaching finance. Your professor asked you to teach finance when you were in college to your classmates, right? And that's particularly interesting. But there's this kid right there who's watching this, who's in bachelor's first year, or a teenager in 10th grade, or 12th grade, or 7th grade right now. You never know, right? And they say I am not as smart as you are, Aditya, but I want to do something around entrepreneurship. I want to build a big company, right? And I want to get started with it right now itself. So what's the step number one, step number two, step number three to get started? Although you mentioned the mindset that I want to do something different, but how can that actionable step be taken?
So yeah, I think the first step
to becoming an entrepreneur starts with building the mindset, as you said. And it's not a one day journey. It's not that you wait for your mindset to be built and then actually go ahead and start a startup, right? So that is a slow and gradual process. But the first thing I think what I say to all the entrepreneurs out there is that whatever ideas are coming to your mind, write all of that down at one place. Okay? I think writing is very therapeutic in that sense. Write that down. Pick up one thing that you think is closer to your heart and you want to pursue and you want to follow. And do more research on the idea. So it's not that I have an idea and let me just start registering my company right away. You write a something which is called as a business plan, where you write the fine modalities of your idea. You do your research. You write whether this idea is feasible or not, and feasibility not just from one aspect, but from multiple aspects of technology, of society, of financials, of other things. So you write all of that down in a comprehensive business plan, and then you also look at the market. You also look at scalability, because if the idea is not scalable, then it's not something which you actually want to go ahead and pursue. You are in here for growth, so of course, if there's a growth potential to it, it makes a lot of sense for you to do that. You write all of that down in a business plan, and then you look for validating it through your customers. You build a prototype, build an MVP, whatever it is. It can be a website, it can be a hardware product, it can be the first app, it can be whatever it is. Validate that through your initial set of customers, friends, family, strangers as well, the general population at large. You collect their feedback, you iterate, you again go to them, you again collect their feedback. You repeat this cycle. This is called the lean startup methodology. You repeat this cycle. It's called the build, measure, learn. So you build, you measure, and then you learn accordingly. So you do repeat this cycle until you have a prototype at hand, a final prototype at hand. With that, I think you actually go ahead and launch, right? Because product is an everlasting journey. You can, of course, make continuous iterations to it. Launch it, and then you start getting a customers for it. So slowly and gradually increase, and then you look for investments once you have some early level of customers. I think that's the cycle that you have to repeat every now and then.
Amazing. That's interesting, right? But I want to just catch up on what you said, getting the idea and getting it validated further. But for most people right there, they want to do something with entrepreneurship. They want to get started with their venture, but they don't know what the idea is. One of the popular models is the problem solution model, that you find out a problem, you go out there and build a, solution that the consumer cannot build on their own, right? And it's scalable and stuff like that. So that's interesting. But let's say again, from the naivest perspective, that I want to get started but I don't have an idea, what do I do to get an idea to get my startup started?
Hmm. So, see, in terms of getting an idea, right? I think ideas are very, very overrated, because ideas don't get you anywhere as well in the world. Anyone can have an idea at that point. All that matters is who executes it, right? So, in terms of where do I get an idea, see, get it by keeping your mouth shut and your ears open, right? You listen to a lot what is happening in the world. You analyze trends. You get a sense of course, what's moving in each of these sectors. So in FMCG, in auto, in IT, in pharma. Look at these sectors. You analyze these sectors. Then you look for what's that one white space you are willing to sort of fill in between. Let's say one particular sector has this huge problem which we moving around. What can be
Mhm.
your solution, right? What can be your solution proposition? More importantly, rather than just a problem solution model, you also second look for is that can I make a business out of it? Because that is what matters. I can solve solutions, right? But I can't build business out of every solution that I'm getting. So you have to see if it can be built into a business which is scalable, for which people will pay you, and of course you have a capacity to get more and more customers and do more iterations around it. Once you have a sense of that, that's when you go ahead and start executing. But ideas can come from anywhere, right? It can come from a news channel, it can come from a newspaper, it can come from an interaction with WebHub, it can come from anywhere,
From
right?
the Faad
So you just
guy
have
in the Instagram.
to come anywhere, right? So you just have
Oh
to
yeah.
be cognizant. Yeah.
I love that. And the easiest thing to go is go out there, watch as many stuff happening, and you get as many insights as possible. And that's interesting. But at the same time, Aditya, for most people, like I don't find a problem right away. But in a way, it is a problem. Like we were having a talk before this call, and you mentioned that your first thing that you did was a business was you used to eat lunch of your friends and then send them to canteen and make a commission out of it, right? Now that necessarily is not solving a problem other than for you that you want to make money, you want to have food or from whatever it is, right? So when the very initial stage, I want to just know what startup is. That's not even a startup, right? You just do something for fun and make money. That's cool, right? That you just don't have to jump into startup. You can do something if you're in college right now for fun that gets you a little bit of money, commission, and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I think that was not a startup. In fact, the
Exactly.
problem it was creating a problem for me because there would be as many limited lunches that I could eat, right? And I
Right.
was, of course, not the biggest foodie back in school that I could eat all the lunches of about 40, 50 students in my class.
It was not
So
scalable.
not scalable. Not scalable. And you can't build a team. You can't say, okay, now we'll go ahead and steal lunches. Let's build a team. And people would say, this
Okay.
is legit, my friend, whose lunch I'll be eating.
Okay.
Can't do that. And then your business is just dependent on the canteen vendor being in the school. So what if the canteen vendor changes his mind, or if the canteen vendor gets changed by the school authorities every second day? So it's dependent on, of course, it was not. And I never launched it in that way as well. I think
Yep.
when you are early up young, what you're looking for is just a validation of whatever of something, right? It was more a
Right.
validation of my business mindset, right? That can I
Hmm.
make money out of nothing? I realized there was a problem in school because the canteen vendor was not making money. I realized that there was a problem in school where students can't order anything from outside. So the best option they have is to go to the canteen vendor and eat something out of it. So I realized that these were the set of problems. So if I take away their lunches, they have no other option but to go to the canteen vendor and have something. They can't be hungry for the whole day, right?
Right.
So it's not a test of a startup. I think I never wanted to do it that way as well. It was more a test of, okay, can I execute it? That was my first
Hmm.
execution project, right? And can I execute? And I think that gave me that insights that you have a mindset and you can also execute on ground, right? So you went ahead and you get that little amount of little peck of confidence early on in your life. And I think that's what you should aim for. You can become a big startup owner maybe next 5 7 years down the line, but everyone starts small, and you have to start small somewhere or the other in that regard.
Love that. Love that. So jumping a move ahead right now, like when I was in my school, I used to sell books for commissions, right? I used to sell TT balls. Like I used to sell duplicate table tennis balls for original and make 15 rupees out of it. Then I start selling books, right? I used to get books from India and then I used to smuggle it. In a way, we have an open border, not that illegal. I used to get it and sell it, and then I had a whole supply chain with 10 students in different classes who used to sell my books and stuff. So completely relatable. But I want to jump a step further right now. So when you talk about entrepreneurship, startup ideas, business, it's not the cool thing most often, right? You are a nerd often who is left out in the classroom, right? In most cases, right, there are some places where entrepreneurship is a culture and stuff, but for most schools or colleges or places right there, it's not, it's not a fun thing to talk about, right? So when you were particularly, I want to take it from your personal anecdote. When you were in college particularly, you are the cool guy for yourself, but did it ever happen that you felt alone within yourself as a human?
Very interesting question. I think Sunday morning in answering this question, of course, on loneliness. So I'll tell you one thing, that entrepreneurship in itself is a very lone journey, right?
Right.
Kind of glamorized by the media that, okay, you have like people literally celebrating you, funding you, get raising funds, and of course that big party is happening. But on 99.99% of the days, it's mostly lonely. And one thing that embracing entrepreneurship has taught me is that the moment you embrace entrepreneurship, you accept that, okay, There will be points of time in your life where you'll have to fight a lot of people, and sometimes those people can be your maybe your own family as well, right? And it does make a situation where you feel it's you versus the rest of the world. So it's not that, of course, now people are progressing slowly, people are accepting entrepreneurs. Just tell you one thing, that it kind of gets alone, which is, of course, that's there. You are your biggest support at the end. If you are not your biggest support at the end of the day, you can't become a right? Because there will be investors who will be denying. There'll be customers who will be saying shit on your face, and they have every right to do so as well, right? And there'll be team members who will be questioning some of your decisions or some of your policies. So yes, you have to take a stand for yourself at some of the time. And if you're not your biggest strength and support, trust me, going into entrepreneurship, it's very, very tough. It's also a battle of mindset. That's what I'm saying. Building an entrepreneurial mindset, you also realize that you have people around you, but on some of the days you can feel lonely. What you could do is create a community of like-minded people around you. People who are always willing to have a talk. People who are always willing to listen and share. If you want to share something, they definitely open their minds and talk to you without judgment. So building that community is very, very important, because again, you can't survive for long alone as well. You need people alongside you, right? You need moral support. And each and every one of us needs that. We are not that stone a creature that we can just do away with moral support. We need love. We definitely need a lot of support. That people around you, people would understand. People would try and talk to you. Definitely. But
Right.
to anyone who's watching it, just want to say that if you feel alone and if you want to share something on entrepreneurship, I'm sure me and Webo are definitely here to talk.
Definitely. And one of the thing, as you just mentioned, just to reframe it, like all of us seek validation in a way, right? No matter, unless we are Buddha, we seek validation. But the question is, who are the people that we are seeking validation from, right? Is it the people, is it a bunch of junkies in my college who are constantly about relationship? And there's nothing wrong about it. Relationship, parties, fun, completely cool. That's a way of life and it's cool, right? And there are people who are constantly into that rat race. They're happy. The conversation is all about that, and there you pitch your ideas and you don't get validated over there, right? They call you boring, and boom, you drop that because nobody wants to look boring, right? On the other hand, if you are around a bunch of people like Aditya, or on the other hand, if you can go out there and find a bunch of people who think something like you, and you sit around them and talk with them, you'll get the greatest goosebumps. And I realized this recently. I used to feel like I used to have a lot of people appreciating me, right? Cool, Vaibhav, you're doing great and all that stuff. And I'm sure you get that much more than me, Aditya, right? But at the end of the day, there are so many few people that you can talk to late night about something, right? So you go out there and find a bunch of people who are as dreaming as you are, as crazy as you are, and you can talk to them about your thing and they'll find that cool. Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the strength of your friendship, and we're talking about this on a friendship day. So the strength of your friendship is determined by the number of 3 a.m. friends you have, right? 3 a.m. friends are the best sources of people. And there's something with that time, 3 a.m. You open up a lot, you listen a lot more, you feel a lot more connected with life. It's the time where I have personally opened up a lot as well. So your friendship in a way is determined by the number of people you have as 3 a.m. friends. Because these are the kind of people who want to listen to you and who are as invested in your growth as you are, right? So build those active and healthy relationships. Right? Time is never a constraint. So when I'm looking for people, I'm not looking for it as a function of time, that this much amount of time I'm spending with that person, this much amount of time I'm spending with that person. What I'm looking for is how we can support and be in each other's tough time. Right? Uh, it's okay if that person is not in the happiest of times. They're not in the toughest of times. Then kind of you meet and feel their presence. Yeah, you relate with people, you find commonalities, you find time. Figure out one thing, that all of us down do need people in whatever stage we are. We are self-sufficient. We have a lot of power in ourselves. We are entrepreneurs. We are human beings as well. That's the loving side. So we should caress that and we should always nurture and cherish that.
Definitely, definitely. So yeah, you know, now I want to jump into what you expertise in. It has been such a wonderful conversation that we have been having around. But we have Aditya who turned from uh, a kid in the college who used to make commissions out of selling, you know, canteen food right there, to starting his own venture, to now leading one of the amazing, venture funds right there in the country. So there's this young person who has an idea, right? Who wants to go ahead with stuff with building a business. And you have been investing into businesses, you have been understanding the ecosystem in a very close way. So even before someone is getting started, what do you think are the three things the person should think beforehand, so they can create a long lasting, impactful, profit making company?
Interesting. So I think to anyone who's listening this and wants to create a amazing venture which is scalable and profitable, one thing is that I would say is be closer to your customers from day one, right? A lot of what is non-customers is just noise, right? At the end of the day, listening to customers is the pure music in your ears, and you're building it for them, so their advice and their suggestion matters a lot. Listen to what your customers are saying and solve it in the best way possible. That is one thing. So always be connected to your problem, I would say. Listen to your customers. Second is be connected to your problem. A lot of times there is so much web which happens in startups. There's a funding, of course, galore which happens. There's a acquisition spree that happens. There are a lot of eventful events, I would say, that happens. And in that moment, it's quite easy to forget the very reason for which we started the company. Kind
Right.
of sounding philosophical, but it's very true, right? We forget that why did we start it in the first place? Did we start to just raise money and create value for ourselves? Or did we start to create value for other people? So always make sure that in that journey, even in that adrenaline rush that would happen around you, make sure you always fall back to your roots and stay connected to the vision with which you started the company. That is, I think, the second thing, right? And third thing is that don't care about numbers, right? Numbers do matter as well. It's not that numbers don't matter. Of course, the number of customers you have would matter. Of course, the revenue that you're making would matter. Of course, the ratings that even the smallest of user is giving to you on an app store or a play store does matter, right? Even if it's very small number, won't affect your average, like your total rating. Still, that means that there is some portion of customers which are unsatisfied. Listen to numbers, to listen to what the story they want to tell, right? A lot of startup is about storytelling. Startups are about journey. Why did we start? The passion, the vision. Then you have, of course, your core component, which is, of course, what we're trying to build and how we are trying to change the world. Always make sure that in all of this, you listen to the components of stories, right? What numbers tell you, what your feedback tells you, what your reviews tell you. Listen to them, you take an action accordingly. Three steps. Once, always remember your customers, listen to your customers. Second, connect to your vision with which you started. Third is pay fine tuning on numbers and listen to their story that they're trying to tell and take an action accordingly.
Amazing. The three steps right there. I'm sure you took a note of it, and I hope this helps to you. And as we are towards the end of today's conversation, I think it was a time travel for me because I got so much in depth. I mean, this is one of the favorite experiences in the podcast in the last few months. I'll be honest with you, Aditya. And before we move towards the final end, there's this question that takes it bold, to the basic one that we're starting in right now, right? The first question, back to it right now. Is entrepreneurship worth it? Do you think it makes sense? And of course, there's no answer like yes, it makes sense, or no, it does not make sense. But there are prices you have to pay, there are risks that you have to take. And for a 17-year-old or 21-year-old or 23 who's just completing his studies, or even a 15-year-old, right, to pursue entrepreneurship as a career, is it worth it? I know it's a very generalized question, but I'd love to hear from you.
100%. I think entrepreneurship is to be pursued. 100%. It's worth it. I'll tell you one thing I posted on LinkedIn which got very viral was that whenever you start, you always start in a pool of uncertainties. You can't predict 100% that customers will be there. You can't predict 100% that your investors will fund you. You can't predict 100% that you'll be able to build the right team. You can't predict 100% that you'll have the best of business model at hand. You can't predict 100% that you have the best technology at hand. Right? You're using the best technology. But there is so much uncertainty that you can't even say one thing with 100%. But you can definitely say one thing with 100% that if I have the passion and vision for this enterprise that I'm starting, I'll be there on every single day, no matter what. That
Hmm.
makes it 100% worthwhile, right? That no matter what happens, I started this for a passion. I started this putting everything at sacrifice, putting everything in this enterprise, and now I want to make it 100% worthwhile. So your passion and vision makes it 100%. And to anyone who's wanting to go into entrepreneurship, I would just suggest that just don't go blindly, first of all. Do your own bit of research, figure out that what's the kind of problem that you want to solve with. Because entrepreneurship in itself is tough. It's the entrepreneurs who make it beautiful. So are you that entrepreneur who has the tendency to make it beautiful? That answer you only get when you research, when you talk to people, when you talk to entrepreneurs, you network. It's a constant journey where you evolve as an entrepreneur. I think if you do that, it's 100% worth it.
Amazing. I think I had so many more questions to ask and discuss about, but I'm sure there's a constraint to what we are talking about. But I definitely look forward to having another episode in Being Champions with you, Aditya. But I have a surprise for you. Do you like surprises?
Absolutely. I
Do you
love
love
them.
surprises?
Yeah, I love them.
Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to go for a rapid fire round, and it's going to be a little bit different, right? So what's going to happen is I'm going to pop you off with random words. This could be as amazing as validation or entrepreneurship, or as random and creepy as a marker, a marker kadhakkan. It could be literally anything, right? And the catch for you is you have 4 seconds to get started with your answer, and you can take one sentence at maximum to answer it. So it's just what comes to your brain spontaneously. Cool. So I'll tell you a backstory. We did this thing with some really amazing people. We did with some, we did some, the largest company owner of Nepal. We did with world public speaking champions, some Paralympic athletes, and these are amazing people, right? But when we do this part, it gets super duper quick and interesting. If we have a drum roll right, it would just say duk 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 while a moment. I'm sure we're gonna have a lot of fun. And yeah, on a count of three, two, and let's get started. Fad is the first word for you. Fad.
Faad is not just a company, and it's an emotion.
Chocolates.
I love chocolates.
Mustache.
Kind of feels more masculine and macho.
Happiness.
I'm searching for it as well.
Instagram.
The newest clone of TikTok.
Okay. Okay. We luckily don't have reels in Nepal right now. So yeah. Success.
uh, Comes after failure.
Focus.
the stepping stone to success.
Camera.
Uh, Candid pictures and selfies.
Funding.
Hope you get it from me.
Food.
Can have it anytime, any day.
Life.
Make it worthwhile and interesting.
Wife coming soon. Wife.
In search of one.
Okay, that was interesting. Thank you so much. And this is not just an interview, but if there's anybody interested with Aditya, you can mail him right away with your resume and see where you can get a conversation started. He's looking to get married as well. Thank you so much, Aditya. It was super duper fun. Really, I'm sure it's going to give mental orgasms, intellectual orgasms to young champions right there. And before we end, one final question. They say that most companies, 90% of companies don't survive 5 years, and then there are 5% of that 5% who survive for the next 5 years, right? And things like that. So there's a reason to be pessimistic. There's a reason to think the chances of this working out is so damn low. So why do take that risk, right? What is your take on that? You see, entrepreneurship is worth it, but if there's so much of risk involved, why do you think it is still worth it?
I'll tell you, man. I'm glad you asked this question. In fact, last week on LinkedIn, I posted something about it. So, if you look at the statistic, statistics don't tell the entire story. What you should look at is the back end numbers. About 60% of the enterprises are failing at an ideation stage, right? Because the entrepreneur is bringing the idea too late into the market or too early. Because the entrepreneur is not able to structure the idea properly. Because the entrepreneur is not able to clearly explain in terms of what the idea will do and figure out the different notionalities of it. About 15 to 18% on startups fail because they're not able to build the right team, and just about 8% of the startups fail because they don't get access to funds, right? So 75 to 80% of the reasons are all just you, right? You have to build the team, you have to work around your idea, right? And if you don't do the even the basics correct, if you are not able to do that, then of course you are a recipe for disaster and failure. So it's not that you're not getting access to capital, something that's not in your hands. That's the major root cause of failure. It's just pegged at somewhere around 7 to 8%. Majority percentage power lies in your own hands. What you have to realize and do is that whenever I'm starting that enterprises, I start with better research. I talk to people around me. I validate my idea properly. I reach to a product market fit. And then I slowly build my team. I sell them. I buy them with passion and sell them for vision, right? So always make sure that you are building the right team, people who can help take your idea to the next level. I think if you do that, you don't have to worry about anything else. I'll give you one statistic. There, Harvard acceptance rates are as low as 0.5%, 0.4%, even less than that. Still, a lot
Right.
of people sit for that examination, right? Because somewhere or the other, every person who's sitting for that exam realizes that I may be the person who would be in that 0.4%, right? They all sit with something called as hope, right? So similarly with ITJ exams in India, similarly with all the civil service administration exams, people sit with the hope that I may be the next one. 90% of the startups fail because of their own problems, right? But what you have to realize is that if I succeed, if I become an outlier, I can be in that 1 or 2% of startups which go out and become massively successful. And you are no wrong in order to think that. All of us, we start with entrepreneurship, we start with a vision. Okay, I want to become this big, I want to be the best company in my space. So why not have a vision? Why not back yourself to do that? And why not do your basics and fundamentals right? If you do that, statistics is something you should not worry about, because there are a lot of people who go out there and become successful, and you can be the one to as well.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Thank you so much, Aditya. This was not fun, but super duper fun. Squared, cubed to the power of 93.7, whatever it is. It was really fun talking to you, not just fun, intellectually fun talking to you. I'm sure young people right there did get a lot of value. If you're watching this in television, please reach out to us over Instagram sharing how this episode impacted you. Or if you're watching this in YouTube or Instagram, wherever you're watching this, go out there in the comment section and do share us about your particular experience. What was your key learning with this amazing episode of Being Champions? Thank you so much. A big virtual hug to Aditya right there for making it. I'm sure I loved it. We're trying to make it from a long time. But thank you for taking the time for this. I'm sure a lot of people right there in Nepal, India, whatever watching this, are going to get a lot of value. I'm sure I got a lot of value out of this. And hope you join us next week in the television, 7 p.m. Nepal, 7 p.m. Monday Nepal time on Makalu television with Being Champions. Or you can watch our amazing videos in YouTube, Instagram, or wherever you're watching this. Thank you so much once again, and see you in the next episode of Being Champions with Vaibhav Nahata.